All right. Here we go, guys and gals. And boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, drivers.
Hello, people of the world. The Loose Wheel Podcast, episode number 30. I actually put it in the itinerary here for once, so I know the number. With us today is Ethan Ignatowski, as always. And
Hello.
we have the one, the only, the very known, out of, where are you now, New Jersey? Royce Dixon Child.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Today we've got a lot of things on tap. A lot of Formula One because
Very F1 heavy episode. So.
However, before we get into anything, I'm going to give out the Chicken Award
Oh no.
to NBC and Peacock. They are the reason I don't have any NASCAR IndyCar for last week and this week. Because, we want Olympics. Well, you don't get my view of the Olympics. I've not watched any of it, and I will
haven't
not
watched any of the Olympics.
No,
That's
because
kind of
NBC
crazy.
is fraudulent. So here you go, NBC. You get the Squeaky Chicken Award right off the bat. This is probably the earliest I've given a chicken award into an episode. So good job. That's a new record.
And I think you should maybe watch some of the Olympics. It's kind of cool.
I like archery.
Archery is a cool one.
It may be cool, but I'm doing cool things anyway.
Okay, Mr. Too Good for the Olympics.
Let's get into the reviews. Spa happened.
And now for last week's race reviews.
I did watch the race for once. And but Ethan, Royce, you guys know more wheel in Formula One land than I do. If you want to talk about it,
yeah, I'll go through it. Royce, if you have anything you want to say throughout, go for it. But yeah, this is becoming a theme on starts. It's becoming a theme that the first thing I say about a race is Lando Norris has a bad start. What do you know? Once again, he has a bad start, goes off track a little bit into the gravel. Sergio Perez also didn't have a great start. He lost a spot to Lewis Hamilton right off the bat. And then at the end of the lap, Max, he started working his way up the grid because if you remember, he started P11. He was able to make his first move of the race on Alex Albon into the bus stop chicane at the end of the lap. He then was able to get past Alonso the next lap. And on lap 3, Lewis was able to take the lead of the race on the front straightaway. On lap 4, Zhou started to lose power. He would try to continue going on, but would retire a few laps later. On lap 8, Hülkenberg pitted, which opened the pit lane for the rest of the midfield. Tire strategies were getting underway. A few laps later, on lap 11, the leader started to pit, or not the leaders, but Russell, Max, guys that would be fighting for the lead later on. They started to pit. They got hard tires. On lap 12, Hamilton, Perez, and Piastri, the real leaders of the race at that point, were pitting. They went hard, medium, hard. George had an undercut on Piastri, but Piastri was able to get the position back rather quickly. Next lap, it was the next lap. Leclerc pitted, and he came out ahead of Perez, so he retained the position off of Perez's undercut attempt. And Piastri then passed Sergio Perez, so Perez was just falling back the grid at this point. Lando Norris, who was the only remaining driver out of the top category of drivers, he did not pit. He went long for some reason. Why? I don't know. Him and Sainz, they had a weird strategy. On lap 16, he finally did come into pit, so he went longer for 3 more laps, and he came out 6 seconds behind Verstappen, so the strategy did not work at all. They tried to go longer to avoid the undercut. They just got undercut harder. That's all that happened. On lap 17, though, with those faster tires, Lando did, or with those newer tires, I should say, he did record the fastest lap. So he was starting to get back up towards that group of drivers, but he was behind in positions. On lap 21, Sainz finally came into pit, and he came out 4 seconds-ish behind Lando. Lewis was leading at this point of the race, and George Russell got past Sergio on the straight. So Sergio continues to fall back. On lap 23 to 25, there was some midfield battling. Ricardo, he made a pass on Sargent. Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon also passed Sargent, and Ricardo and Albon would kind of start flying up towards the front of the back half, or towards the front of the back half of the grid, trying to get that 10th point of the race. On lap 27, Hamilton pits, and he defended an undercut from Leclerc. Through the next couple laps, Verstappen and Sainz would pit, Lando would pit, all that stuff. So Lando, he came out behind, or him and Max come out ahead of Carlos, I should say. And Sergio and Max, they swap places. So Sergio has gone all the way from second down to, I believe it was 8th at this point. Just a horrific race for him, really. So on lap 31, Piastri comes in. He has a slow stop, but is able to stay ahead of Verstappen. So now, after kind of the last pit cycle, the top 10 is Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri, Lando, Sergio, Sainz, Alonso, and Valtteri Bottas. On lap 36, after battling him for an entire lap, nearly getting past him, Oscar Piastri finally does get past him into the chicane at the end of the straight. On lap 39, Sainz was able to get ahead of Perez into the chicane at the end of the straight, so 2 moves there. Ocon got past Ricardo for 10th on lap 41. And then on lap 44, the final lap of the race, George Russell, he crossed the line to take his 1 million old tires home. He somehow was able to stay in front despite having a one-stop pit strategy. However, it didn't go as good for him as you would think. He crossed the line first, right? He won? No, he didn't. Anyway, continuing on, Lando, he was battling Max for a while, just couldn't get past him at all. So for the championship battle, it wasn't a great finish for either Max or Lando, but Max was able to gain a little bit still. So the lead is extended. Top 10, as the flag fell, was Russell, Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Sergio Perez, who did get an extra point for fastest lap, Alonso, and Ocon. However, George Russell, really unfortunate for him, he was not able to make weight at the end of the race. Now, that's a pretty black and white rule. It's cut and dry. If you don't make weight, you are disqualified from the race. So everyone moves up a spot. Lewis Hamilton is your new winner, and Daniel Ricciardo slides into the top 10 to get that final point. Now, for Russell, the interesting thing is the fact that he had that race at Spa could be the reason that he didn't get the win. And what I mean by that is, since Spa is such a long track, and you would have to go around another lap if you did a traditional cool down lap. I think there's probably concerns about fuel and stuff, since that is such a long extra lap to do. So instead, what happens at Spa is, instead of that cool down lap, drivers just turn around and go in through the back of the pit lane and into Parc Fermé, and then you can't touch the car or anything until it's, weighed and all that. On a traditional track, a driver on the cool down lap could drive off the racing line, pick up tire rubber and all the stuff that has come off the cars throughout the race to add weight to their car. And if Russell had the opportunity to do that, he could have made weight potentially. I mean, we won't know, of course, but he could have potentially made weight. So it's unfortunate that Spa was the track that he had such an amazing tire saving one stop race to get that win. It's unfortunate for him, but that's just the way things are. So Russell goes from winning to nothing. And if you want, quick shameless plug here. If you want a little bit of a more in-depth conversation about that, check out the Starting Grid podcast. I was a guest on that with Rome Katie. That's his podcast. He was on here. I believe, like
After Imola.
yeah, after Imola. So you might know him. Go check out the episode I did with him. We talked about that issue a lot more in depth than we will here. But yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, I'll give a race the number 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, 6.5, 7 out of 10. It wasn't the best race ever for on-track action, as you can see from my rundown. I was talking a lot more about pit strategies than actual on-track battling. There was some on-track battling that I didn't mention because it wasn't super important to the outcome of the race. But yeah, it was very much a strategy race as opposed to an on-track battling race, which is fine. It's just a different breed of racing. Not quite as exciting, but it's exciting in a different way. So can't give it a crazy high score, but yeah, 6.5, 7, somewhere in that range is what I would give it.
I think it's one of those races that are like less exciting for the casual fan, as you said, because there's not as much on track. But for like diehard fans who are really into strategy, that's where it really is like interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
What I thought was I didn't think one was gonna do a 2-stop, but I think it was signs on an overcut in that first stint. I'm like thinking, okay, I think it was on the mediums if I remember correctly. I was thinking, okay, he can just make this last about 10 more laps. I think he can make a 2-stop strategy work, or 1-stop strategy rather, 2 stint.
Yeah.
I thought that would have worked for him, but yeah, Russell did it, and it did work for him, except for the fact that he didn't get to keep the win. But I think the 1-stop strategy would have been the better strategy for everyone.
I don't know about for everyone, because some guys, they just can't maintain their tires. Russell has proven that he has the ability to do that. A guy like Carlos Sainz, I would trust him to be able to make that strategy work, especially with Sainz and Lando going longer than the rest of the field. At that point, like, you just kind of have to try something different. So I wish those two did go that alternate strategy, but other drivers, I don't want to single anyone out, but that's what I'm going to do. Like, we've talked a lot about how, despite his amazing race pace, Piastri still has issues with like tire wear and all that. Like, a driver like him, I can't trust him to go on that 1-stop strategy. And I mean, he made the 2-stop work. He got P3, was promoted to P2. So I think it depends on the type of driver you are. But I do wish that more drivers did go on that 1-stop strategy. Russell proved that it was possible, but that's the thing. No one thought it was possible. When Russell did that, people were thinking that that was the wrong move. He made it work, but now we know for the future, but no one was thinking that it was the right move at the time.
Yeah, you wish that Norris and Sainz would have done the 1-stop strategy. I feel like way too often in NASCAR races, and the last few NASCAR races have been not this way, but especially earlier in the year and just in general, I'm always saying, why is everyone taking tires here? Why is everyone staying out here?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm saying that way too often. Just if you're running 20th or so in a NASCAR race or 6th in an F1 race, you go ahead, be different.
Yeah,
What do you got to lose?
because Lando, especially for Carlos too, but Lando especially, like if you are in that championship battle with Max, which honestly, in my opinion, it's not really a championship battle. He's too far back, but him and McLaren want to act like it's a championship battle. Okay, that's fine. If you want to act like it's a championship battle, then what's the point in just sitting behind Max and knowing that you're going to drop back from him? Might as well go on a different strategy and at least try to steal points from him. I don't know. I guess because, there's the risk of losing out on even more points, but if you're Lando and McLaren, you have to go big or go home, because if you just play the battle conservatively, you're not even going to come close to Max by the time Abu Dhabi rolls around.
Yeah.
But
Ethan, you
yeah.
can't win the game if you don't roll the dice.
Yeah. So, unless anyone has anything else to say about Spa, I propose we get into the news.
And now for the news.
News
Let's get
it
into
is.
the news.
All right. So, in what has become a little bit of a tradition, the day after we record, news broke. Esteban Ocon, he has gone to Haas. Everyone already knows about that by now because it happened the day after we recorded. So it was like 6 days ago at this point. But again, it was another case of a horrible kept secret in the paddock. Everyone knew that Ocon was going to go to Haas after there had been rumors for weeks. So he's pairing up with Oliver Behrman. He's going to be on a multi-year contract. We don't know the specifics, of course, but multiple years, probably like 3 or so. For Ocon, like this is a solid move for him, I guess. Like it keeps him in F1, of course. Gives him the opportunity to be a little bit of a team leader, although I don't know exactly how that dynamic will work, since Behrman is probably going to be treated like the golden boy, which I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with, but that's just kind of how it's going to be. And that kind of worries me a little bit, because if he is treated that way, then Esteban, we know he's a little bit of a hothead at times. He could cause some problems over there, but just for Haas, like this is a very solid driver duo. You have to make the moves that'll make you stronger and then worry about all the side effects later. So he's bringing experience into that team. His experience should theoretically be useful when you have a young driver whose input might not be as valuable because they don't know as much. That could be another reason they're bringing him in, but I think it's kind of just simply he was the best driver available who would take that seat. He's an improvement over Magnussen, that's for sure. And with Hulkenberg leaving, you need someone that you at least know what you're gonna get. And I think that's Esteban Ocon. You know what you're gonna get. He's a solid driver. Some people still believe in the potential of him being like top tier driver one day. I just don't see it. I think he's a solid driver now. He's always going to be a solid driver. Nothing super special, but that's what Haas needs right now.
I would also say just about Ocon going to Haas is like, I honestly think he could probably be better than Hulkenberg too. And Haas has had a car this year that has got points. I believe Hulkenberg's got 22, Magnussen's got 5 throughout the year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if he can continue to rake in points, you never know what might happen, whether they can hop like Racing Bulls or maybe even Aston Martin with a very good car.
Yeah. And
it'll be interesting.
With Ocon, who he has a relationship with. Actually, I might be completely wrong here. It might be Behrman who has the previous relationship with Ao Komatsu, or it's Ocon. But either way, there's relationships at that team set in place. There's experience and youth. It's a good mix over there at Haas. Well, they just need to build the car now, and they've already improved this much in a short time under Komatsu. So this isn't the best time in the world to be a Haas fan, but things look like they could be trending up.
Yeah, building for the future is what I see with that team.
Yeah. Next bit of driver market news, another horribly kept secret. Carlos Sainz, he's going to Williams. He was rumored all around Sauber, Mercedes, but the one constant was Williams, and that is where he goes. And, you know, I don't want to be harsh, but this is the worst possible thing to happen to Carlos Sainz. I mean, obviously not worse than being out of F1 entirely, but Williams is a major downgrade. Yeah, he's forming a quite formidable driver duo with Alex Albon. Like, personally, I love that driver duo. I think those are both drivers that deserve to be at a better team than Williams. But I just don't trust Williams to give them the car to do something. The last time Williams had a strong car, like a legitimately, not even a strong car, just a solid car, a legitimately solid car, was over half a decade ago. And I don't know if Williams can ever get back there. Like, James Vowles, I trust him as the team principal. They have more money than they did before, but still, like, I don't trust that team to provide Carlos with a car that can get him to do something. I think that he'll, try to leave that team as soon as possible. I thought it was originally a 1-year deal, because most of the time when it's a multi-year deal, the F1 Instagram will say signs with blank for next season and beyond. They didn't say that for Carlos. They just said signs with Williams. But Williams did confirm that it is at least a 2-year deal. They said 2025, 2026, and beyond. So that makes me think that Sainz has an option for whether he wants to stay there for the 2027 season. It would also make sense to me, like, if he has a clause or something that can allow him to go to a top team if they offer him a contract, a bit of an opt-out clause there. Me and Rome were talking about that as well. It's just, like I said at the start of all this, such an extreme downgrade for Sainz, and I just feel bad for the guy, really. Like, there wasn't many other places to go, because I don't know if Sauber was still offering with him, but, they could be the better place to go with, the Audi group taking that team over and all that. But right now they're in an even worse position than Williams, so I can't really fault him for going there, even if I do think that by the time Audi takes, like, full control of the team and they have, like, their foot extremely in the door, like right now they're about halfway in the door. Once they have, like, fully walked through the door, I do think that team will be better. In Mercedes, I think Mercedes is making a mistake taking who is probably going to be Kimi Antonelli in that second seat, taking him over Carlos. I think that it should be Kimi at Williams for a couple years, and then by the time he's developed, drop Carlos, get Antonelli. I don't like what they're doing over there. I think they're just rushing him too quickly. We'll see, though. We'll see if Mercedes regrets it. Yeah, and for Logan Sargent, who is obviously out of a seat now, his time in F1 probably done, but he seems pretty likely to be jumping over to IndyCar, probably with Prema. That's just a rumor, though, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And yeah, we'll see. I can't say how much I don't like this move for Carlos, though.
I mean, my opinion, though, obviously not great for Sainz. He's going from a car where he can win races into a car where he's going to be battling for points. But look at it from Williams' perspective. This is a great move for Williams.
Yeah, for Williams, it's great.
because they're going to piece together a really good driver lineup that'll probably be able to not only score them points, like both drivers will be able to score them points. And it's been a while since you could say that for Williams, because obviously Sargent and then before him Latifi.
Very
But
true.
I mean, if they can just develop their car, they're going to look like they could be a solid mid-pack team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything y'all said. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. I just they do have the driver lineup to succeed. I don't know if they get there. Only time will tell on that, really. Next bit of news, kind of a 2-3 parted story here. Bruno Famin, team principal of Alpine, no longer. He is stepping down. He is taking over more of a all-around role in that Alpine team. Like he's still going to be, or not Alpine, just Renault Group, I should say. He's still going to be involved in the Renault Group, but he's going to be overseeing other racing departments. He's not going to be overseeing the F1 team anymore. So stepping down as team principal. He was originally only supposed to be an interim team principal after Otmar Zafnauer left, funnily enough, at the 2023 Belgian Grand Prix. But he lasted a year in that role, and now he's stepping down, and they found a new team principal, and that is Oliver Oakes. Not exactly sure how to say his name. He's honestly, in my opinion, a really good replacement, really good guy to take control of that team. He's a former driver himself. He was part of the Red Bull Junior team back in the day, but never really could get good results after making the way up to the F3 GP3 level. And he stepped away from driving and went into the managerial side of racing. He's the guy in charge of high tech, which has produced illustrious drivers such as George Russell, Alex Palou, Yuki Tsunoda, and Nikita Mazepin. So he has great
Hold on.
leadership. Yeah.
Bro tried to sneak in Nikita Mazepin like we would notice.
You caught me. But yeah, he has great managerial skills, I would assume, from dealing with drivers such as Nikita Mazepin. And being the leader of a junior team, you're not just in charge of like the F2 venture or the F3 venture. No, he's in charge of like 20 different drivers over multiple categories. So what I would assume is very strong leadership skills, which is exactly what Alpine needs at this point in time. And you have Flavio Briatore over there as well in an advisory role. I think that's a really strong duo for this Alpine team that can kind of bring them back up the grid, because they have fallen and fallen hard. But Mr. Oliver, he seems to be a good replacement. I mean, he has the resume. So it's, again, another we'll see how it goes type situation. But based on the resume, I like the hiring.
Yeah, high tech is it's no Prema, but they're a solid team in the
Yeah, they're a solid team.
lower formula. I don't know what the plural form of
Rankings.
formula is, but yeah.
Yeah. So the depending on how you want to look at it. The second or third part of this story, though, is that the plans to scrap the power unit have been confirmed. Mercedes has been contacted by Alpine, and it seems like they are probably who's going to provide the power units for 2026 onward. So Oliver Okies, however you say his name, he will be kind of leading through that transition. And I don't think a deal has been finished. A deal might have been finished that hasn't been announced to the public, but seemingly he is going to be the guy that is going to try and close the deal for Alpine. So he has a lot on his plate very quickly, and we'll see how he can manage. And last bit of Formula One news, not a lot of information here, but the director of the Dutch Grand Prix, Robert van Overdijk, I believe is how you would pronounce that. Probably. Anyway, he is, like I said, the director of the Dutch Grand Prix, and he has basically said, speaking to a Dutch newspaper, De Telegraph, something like that. He basically had an interview with them, and he said that he's not confident that the race will exist in 2025 and going forward. He said it's not because of relationship issues with Formula One. Formula One and the Dutch Grand Prix have a good relationship, but he didn't really say what other issues could be blocking the race from happening. But the reason I'm talking about this is because if the Dutch Grand Prix director isn't confident that a race is going to happen, I would say that, yeah, the race might not happen. And that's kind of unfortunate. Zandvoort is a fun place to go. It's a very unique track with banking, which we don't see on the Formula One calendar until Andrew's Monza Oval idea is recognized by the F1 commission or whoever decides that stuff.
To that, because I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, but until Andrew's grand plan is created, Zandvoort is the only track on the calendar with banking. So it's a unique track. I would hate to see it go, really. It's not like the best races happen there by any means, but it's a fun, unique track. The environment with everyone in the stands being crazy with like flares and smoke and all that for Max Verstappen, like that's a cool environment. It would kind of be sad to see it go.
Yeah, it's always one of my favorite tracks to drive in the F1 games.
There you go. Yeah, because it's very unique. Like the way you race Zandvoort in multiple ways is very different than a regular F1 track. There's different racing lines you can take. There's not one universally agreed upon fastest racing line and all that. So it's whatever you can make of it.
I'll also say, just in terms of the track scheduling, kind of very disappointed in the movement recently in F1, adding a lot of races in the United States, because really we don't need 3 races here in the United States.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Also, I mean, I quite like just the normal circuits. Like I don't enjoy the street races as much. And so I mean, if we could just keep it on a normal circuit, that would just be great. Let's just keep it.
Preaching to the choir, man. I am 110% with you. Like all these street circuits, most of the time do not produce great racing. If F1 wants to have 2 races in the US and one of those is on a street circuit, I would be fine with that. But at this point, like, please pick between one of Las Vegas or Miami. It's a little too much and on not great tracks as well. So it's what's the point? If you're going to have more races in the US, to attract more US fans, like at least have them on good tracks. But I don't know. It seems like there are a lot more F1 fans, like, or people becoming F1 fans in recent years. So maybe they know what they're doing, but I feel like they could be even more successful if they went back to Indianapolis or tried to bring up a track like Laguna Seca. That just wouldn't work because of the corkscrew. But a track like
I was gonna say,
Road
imagine
America or
Formula
something.
One on the corkscrew. That would be crazy.
Yeah, just Laguna Seca would be awesome, but I don't think that's possible. But like Road America, Watkins Glen, I don't know. Try to bring one of those tracks up to FIA Grade 1 or whatever they need to do. I don't know.
Yeah. For your US idea, how about we have both Miami and Las Vegas, but we rotate them?
Yeah, sure.
So we don't lose anything. We just kind of go on and off, back and forth. That I think is underutilized in today's F1. It
Yeah.
could be going to a lot more places, but we're stuck with our, instead of 24 races at 24 different locations, let's say, or take our 24 races and then have 4 of them be rotating, and we could
Yeah.
hit with about maybe 3 different tracks. So that would make us 32 different tracks with 24 races. So
I mean, we've discussed, I think we had like a whole segment last year about like our ideal calendar, like bring the European Grand Prix back. So instead of going to Imola every year for like a second race in Europe, you can go to Mugello, you can go to Portimao, you can go to all these other places and add some variety to the calendar. But let's hit some NASCAR news. Andrew, Corey LaJoie and Spire Motorsports are parting ways after the season. Tell us about that.
yeah, surprise move. Even with LaJoie's poor performance, he still had a contract. Yeah, it just surprised everyone because the guy has a contract, and normally contracts mean something a lot more than they do in Formula One. I don't remember the last time this happened where the guys were under contract that said, "Yeah, we're actually going to part ways."
Mm-hmm.
Probably happens more often than I remember, but I don't remember it. So that's kind of interesting. Corey LaJoie posted on his Instagram earlier today, "Oh, I'm going to be breaking some news on my podcast, which comes out later today." I don't know if that came out later today, but I would assume he would head to the Xfinity Series or somewhere. I had the Corey LaJoie game, which featured many humorous things and serious things, where Corey LaJoie has not won more national series. Then you can go watch that a couple episodes ago. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's Xfinity or trucks for him. He'll probably fare decent if he goes there. I think you could consider him going to front row, but I don't think that will happen. And then possible replacements for him. Zane Smith is a possibility. They might want to lease him out for another year, or Trackhouse for leasing him out for another year. You have Sam Mayer, who's in the Chevrolet pipeline, who's running well. Xfinity, he's really, though, you can move Austin Hill up as a possibility. All the other guys are just too young or just not good enough yet for Chevrolet. Or you might want to go get maybe Christian Eckes from the Truck Series. He's running well. He's in the Chevrolet pipeline. That's about the only Truck Series guy that I'd consider getting. but you'd have to. And then there's other people who might not be happy. Maybe like a Chandler Smith as a possibility. If Toyota doesn't want to keep him, if Toyota can't keep Corey Heim, that's a good target to go get. I don't think it will happen, but that's just. There's always surprises. Who knows what will happen? Just I hate to say it. Well, I don't hate to say because Riley Herbst has gotten better, but maybe him, you have to consider him now because he's finally gotten his stuff together after 5 seasons in the Xfinity Series or something like that. Yeah, that's really it in terms of your Xfinity guys. If you wanted maybe go get another truck guy, like I don't think Ty Majeski would work, but that's really it. I feel like it's going to be a lot of people were suggesting Kyle Busch. I don't think that's going to happen because he is tied to RCR just with that situation. I think he'll be there for another year. I could maybe being a contract buyout, but could happen. But Bob Pockrass, who is arguably the most trusted reporter in NASCAR, has said not can happen. So there you are. Well, that should be a coveted seat because Spire's on the rise. Carson Hocevar, I think, running 23rd in points this year with Luke Lambert, who is not historically not the greatest crew chief. And you've got Rodney Childers coming to that program, who's I would have to say top 5 crew chief in NASCAR. So you've got that coming over, and possibly that whoever is the driver could possibly be an outside shot for the playoffs next year. So that's a surprisingly high coveted seat in the silly season. And I think that's probably the best seat available, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And now for next week's race previews.
Next up, I think we should quickly go through the preview of the Road America IMSA race as quick as possible, and then go through who our picks are to win that race, and then we'll get into our special segment that we have today.
Yeah, Road America, great racetrack. In Hypercar, your defending winners are the 7 Porsche Penske team. Matt Campbell Felipe Mazza will still be in that car. Matt Campbell's doing WEC this year. So, yeah. An LMP2 to the defending winners, PR1 Mathiasen. Their drivers are Paul-Loup Chatin, who's now in the 99 AO team, and Ben Keating, who is in one of the United cars. So they're run. And on the defending LMP3 winner, there'll be an LMP2 with Gar Robinson and Riley Motorsports. Felipe Fraga last year, their normal driver wasn't in the car, but he will be this year. In GTD Pro, your winner was the 23 Heart of Racing with Ross Gunnar Alex Riberas. They'll be back. And then your GTD was Paul Miller Racing. They're now in GTD Pro. So will be interesting to see who does well there. Your driver changes, you have I'm gonna pull that up real quick because I do not have that pulled up. Now I do. Driver changes in Hypercar, none really. All your regular drivers pretty much. Yeah, all your regular drivers. LMP2, one notable absence. You have the CrowdStrike racing team not racing this week. I think that might be due to CrowdStrike, the company, having issues. But the team is ran by Algarve Pro Racing, the Portuguese team that's all over the world. So I don't know why they're not there. But other than that, Paul Darista back in the number 22 United car replacing Felipe Albuquerque. Charlie Eastwood back in the 8 Tower car replacing Renger van de Zander. Scott Hufker out in TDS. Mikkel Jensen is back. All these guys were doing WEC. So that's why they're they were gone last race. Stuart Wiltshire, again in the 18 Air Motorsport, he's doing the sprint races this year. Interesting strategy for them. Change in Sean Creech Motorsports. Dr. Lance Wilsey is out, and they have Tonis Casamets. I'm not good with Estonian names. Tonis is in. JDC Miller bringing a LMP2. Scott Andrews, Gary Kraut driving for them. Paul Lupichatin back in AO Racing, replacing Louis Delatrez. Paul, he was doing WEC. Going to GTD Pro, no real changes. I see. Oh, Alex Riberas back in, placing Mario Feinbacher, again doing WEC. Conquest Racing, they're back. They're bringing their in addition to their GTD entry, they're bringing their pro entry, which will be Daniel Serra and Giacomo Altoe. I butchered that, I guarantee, but I'm not Italian. I cannot pronounce. The points leader, Hail Racing, they're having a change. Sebastian Priul, I can't pronounce British names either. Prilo or something like that. He's out for the rest of the year. He's doing other things with, I think, testing a hypercar or something. I don't know. But Julian Allender, he's in for the team. We'll see if that team can produce the same results for the rest of the year. Going to GTD, showing up this week for the sprint, their first sprint race. They're doing the endurance races. Is the Triarci Competizione entry with Alessio Rivera and Onofrio Triarci. They're going to be there. That's always good to see an extra entry. Again, Zachary Robuchon in the Heart of Racing 27. Spencer Pumpelly out. Again, that is because of his WEC commitments. Change in Korthoff Preston Motorsports. Mike Skeen will be out for the endurance driver Kenton Koch. I don't know why that is. I don't think Koch races in WEC, so I'm not quite sure about what's happening there. Scrolling down the list, we have Sandy Mitchell and the Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti 45 Lamborghini, replacing Kyle Marcelli. Again, their Porsche is not there. I don't know why. Scrolling down more, no changes. And no changes for the rest of the GT lineup.
Cool.
The 120 right team is back. So yeah, Ethan, go ahead.
And now for next week's race picks.
Yeah. Pick points time. So last weekend, it was just F1 and F2. For the F2 sprint race, Andrew had Enzo Fittipaldi. I had Dennis Hauger. Morgan had Oliver Behrman. Dennis Hauger finished ahead of those two. He finished second in the race, so 1 point for me. In the main race, I picked Paul Arone. Still yet to pick up a win. Morgan went for Gabriel Bortoletto. And Andrew went for the guy that actually did win the race, Isaac Hadjar. 5 points to him. We all picked Max Verstappen for first. We all picked Lando Norris for second. Neither of those hit. So 0 points for the lot of us. And then I would have had 5 points if George Russell didn't get disqualified, because I correctly picked Oscar Piastri to finish third. However, he moved up to second. So I go from potentially getting 5 points down to 1. And then Lewis Hamilton, who got promoted to the win, he was on the podium, of course, because he won. So 1 point there for Andrew because he picked him third. Morgan could have got a singular point for the guests if Russell didn't get disqualified because he had Russell finishing third. However, since he did get disqualified, no points. So with Andrew gaining on me, it is 257 points to 246 points with the guests all the way back in 200. Can Royce get them a little bit back into the game? We'll see. For IMSA GTP, it's the number 7 Porsche for me and Andrew, the 31 Whelen Cadillac for Royce.
I like the extra E you did, Royce.
I think I might have wrote that. So that's on me. Anyway, for LMP2, the 99 AO Racing car for Andrew, the 74 Riley car for me, and number 8 Tower Motorsports car for Royce. For GTD Pro, number 1 Paul Miller for Andrew, number 3 Corvette Racing for me, and number 23 Heart of Racing for Royce.
No one going with the championship leader, the Rexy number 77 team.
Yep.
That lost Sebastian.
GTD, regular GTD, 70 Inception car for Andrew. I'm going with the 57 Windward, who has won all but one race in that category. And then the 21,
they aren't racing.
The 21 AF Corsa is who Royce picked, but they aren't racing. So,
he wanted the 34 Conquest.
The 34
I'm
Conquest
writing it in right now
for Royce. Yeah, that's the pick points, but that is not the end of the episode.
No. We got a surprise.
We have a surprise. We are going to be going over our first half driver rankings. We'll try to do this quickly so this episode isn't a million hours long. But how do you guys want to do it? You guys want to go 20th to first to 20th?
I don't care.
I guess probably like 20th to first.
20th to first. All right. I'll start off. My 20th driver, all of us are doing just 20. No Oliver Behrman in this ranking. And I should mention that technically this is first half plus 2 races. We're just doing it during the summer break because it's the summer break. We need things to talk about. The actual like technical midpoint of the season was 2 race weekends ago, I believe.
But nobody cares about that as the real midpoint.
Yeah, this is what we're going with. So 20th, I'd be somewhat shocked if anyone had a different driver than me. Unfortunately, it is our fellow American Logan Sargent for me in 20th.
Well, prepare to be shocked, Ethan.
Ooh,
I have the guy who is not in the top 20 in points in 20th, Mr. Valtteri Bottas.
Okay.
So for me, I kind of ranked, I made my rankings by their performance related to their car and their performance related to their teammate. And so, I mean, it might be a little harsh, but number 20 is Sergio Perez for me.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be shocked if anyone put Perez near the bottom, but 20th, that's pretty harsh. But I understand why. I definitely do. For 19th, for me, I have Valtteri Bottas' teammate, actually, Zhou Guanyu. Quick explanation why is just he's ahead of Bottas in the points. Technically, even though both of them haven't scored a singular point, Zhou is ahead just because of the fact that he, in one of the races, finished 11th. That's the highest non-point finishing place. So he, because of that, is ranked ahead, despite neither of them actually having a singular point. But Bottas has been more consistent throughout qualifying, and I feel throughout the races, I feel like he's had better races than Zhou. I don't think the gap is something huge, but yeah, I have Zhou behind Valtteri in 19th.
Yeah, how I interpreted how to do these rankings is purely based on the season. and not anything else.
Well, they're all our own rankings, so
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the differences in how we interpret things.
So, with that being said, I have Mr. Logan Sargent just because he's kind of slow.
Yeah. Who you got, Royce?
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure. My bad. 19th, I have Sargent because, I mean, obviously he's not performing very well, and everybody's like, this guy stinks. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I think it's pretty obvious 19.
Yeah. For me in 18th, I basically already said who I have. Valtteri Bottas. I already gave my reasoning. Just been a little bit more consistent, a little bit better than Joe, but yeah, there's still definitely a bit of a gap in my mind between Bottas and kind of the next tier of drivers. Maybe 17th you could lump in with Valtteri, maybe even 16th and 15th. I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Who do you have in 18th, Andrew?
For me, this guy has had a little bit better results than his teammate this year in terms of average finish and in the points too. Which one would I rather have to start a Formula One team with today? His teammate. But I do have him above his teammate, Guan Yu Zhou at the 18th spot.
For me, at the 18 is also going to be Zhou Guan Yu. I think he's had some bright spots this year. I mean, obviously finishing 11th, but I mean, Bottas has pretty much outdone him in just about everything, so that's why I have Bottas above him.
Yeah. 17th for me, the man without a seat after Ocon has taken his job, Kevin Magnussen in 17th. He's had a couple good results, couple of points, finishing positions, but he is pretty far apart from his teammate, Nico Hulkenberg. And he had a stretch earlier on in the season of driving extremely dangerously, and with just a couple points to his name, 5 points to be exact, Kevin Magnussen is my 17th ranked driver.
For me at number 17, I'm going to go a different team. I've already put his teammate in here, so if you can deduct things, you know who this is. He just hasn't had a stellar year by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like him otherwise. Just hasn't had the greatest year. Alex Albon.
That's pretty harsh in my opinion, but I'll say what I have to say about Albon when I get to him.
So for me, it's 17. I have Magnussen as well. Obviously, Hulkenberg has proved he can get something out of the car, out of what doesn't look like a great car either. And Magnussen just hasn't been able to quite do the same. But you'll see in my rankings later on where I have Hulkenberg placed. I'm not really sure if this is a matter of Hulkenberg being really good at driving this car or if it's Magnussen being really bad at driving this car.
Yeah, fair enough. For 16th, I have everyone's favorite Canadian, or I guess everyone's second favorite Canadian. Everyone loves Nicholas Latifi a little bit more. Lance Stroll. I mean, here's the thing. Similar to Magnussen, he has been pretty far off his teammate for most of the season. He's in a good stretch of form here. He's driving the car well, but this is a ranking of the entire season, and throughout the entire season, he hasn't been quite as strong on most race days. So yeah, Lance Stroll in 16th, pretty big gap, 24 points as opposed to 49 points to Fernando Alonso. And I don't even think that Fernando Alonso is performing at his tip top this season. So if Lance Stroll is that far behind Fernando Alonso that we've seen make a decent amount of mistakes over the past few weeks. What's that say about Lance Stroll? You know what I mean? So 16th.
Me at the 16th spot, I'm going with everyone's bestie, Esteban Ocon.
Wow.
Alpine hasn't been good this year. And he's just been a little off compared to Gasly. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Royce, what about you?
At the 16, I have Bottas. I mean, he's last in the standings, but he's proved, he can sometimes do something with that Sauber car, and he's pretty much dominated his driver partner. He's 13-1 against Guan Yu in qualifying, 2-1 sprint qualifying, 9-5 in racing. So I think he's done a pretty good job of what he's been given.
Yeah. I'm with you on that assessment of Bottas, although I do have him a little bit lower. But yeah, I do agree with you there. 15th, I have Daniel Ricciardo. He just hasn't been his old self. He really hasn't. He has a couple of nice races for sure, but it has been overall pretty disappointing.
I'm going to go with, I think, the most disappointing driver on the grid. The Mexican minister of disappointment, Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
7th in points. Not very good when your teammate is first.
No, not very good at all.
For me at 15, it's going to be Pierre Gasly. Gasly, so currently in F1, there are 3 driver duos who one partner is better in all qualifying and all types of racing. And Ocon is one of them. He's outperformed in Gasly in each spot. And although Gasly has actually won or has more points, I think he just hasn't been quite there compared to Ocon.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. 14th, I do have Pierre Gasly. Everything you said is why I have him behind Ocon, who you'll hear about in just a little bit. Gasly, it's been a little bit of a disappointing year. Not like a horrific year. I don't think he's like super far behind Ocon at all, but Ocon does have the edge over him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the guy that you guys have mentioned already, Kevin Magnussen. Reason why I have him this far up is because he is a great teammate, helping Nico get a lot of points, and that is worth something. Ethan, you laugh at it, but had it not been for Magnussen's great driving as a teammate, maybe Nico wouldn't have as many points as he does.
He definitely wouldn't have quite as many points as he does, but I mean, it really wouldn't be that much less. Like he would lose 1 or 2 points because of the Miami sprint. Maybe 1 or 2 points here or there. I don't think it would be that extreme. And yeah, I mean, he has been a great teammate for sure this year, but this is about individual drivers' successes. So it's not like a crazy disagreement. Like it's what, 16, 15, 14, 3 spots. Not like super crazy, but yeah, I do still disagree with you.
Royce?
At the 14 for me, I already explained why Gasly is at 15. 14 is Ocon. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
I have Ocon at 13, so I'm right there with you, Royce. I just have them each 1 spot up. Ocon, like you said, he is ahead of Gasly in pretty much everything. Consistently, the gaps aren't really huge. Like even though if Ocon's finishing ahead of him in every single race, pretty much Gasly's finishing like 1 or 2 places behind. So again, the gaps aren't that huge. And Ocon, he's made plenty of mistakes this year. What he did in Monaco just immediately pops off my head in like a what the hell are you doing? But he has still overall been the better driver. So 13th Esteban Ocon for me. Andrew?
13th for me. I think I know who I have. I need to check. Daniel Richard, though.
Mm-hmm.
Just he's done okay with that car. Not better than his teammate. As you said, he isn't as good as he once was, Ethan.
Yeah.
At 13 for me, I have Alex Albon. He's absolutely dominated Sargent this year, and so
Yeah.
I think give him quite a bit of props for that, and I've put him up higher for that. But I feel like there are times where he could make a little more out of each race, and I think he could be there with a few more points this season.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of the first big difference that we had with you having Albon 13th. Andrew, where did you have Albon again?
17th.
Yeah, so I would say that that's kind of the first big difference here. The guy that I have in 12th, though, this is an even bigger difference with you two. And I don't fault you for having him that far back, but I will defend this decision, even though going into making this list, I thought that I would have him around where you guys did have him. I'm, of course, talking about Sergio Perez at 12th. Really, the only reason I have him so high up there is because the first 5 races of the season, he actually, he was still behind Max, but he did what he needed to do. His first 5 results went second, 5th, second, third, and then another third in the sprint race in China. If this was a ranking of Miami onwards, yeah, Sergio Perez might very well be last. But I have to take the first whole half into account, and he was doing what he needed to do the first 5 races of the season, and that helps him out in terms of the rankings. Do I think that Sergio Perez is going to be the 12th best driver going into this second half? Absolutely not. But taking everything into account in the first half, I have to put him 12th. I feel like I have to anyway.
I see what you mean. For me, I'm going. If I can do math, this guy is my 5th favorite Canadian. Maybe lower. I might not have thought of. I might be forgetting some Canadians, but Lance Stroll. I don't need to say more.
Yep.
For me at 12, I have Ricardo. I mean, he's had a pretty solid year at times. I feel like quite a few ups and downs, but he's had a solid year compared to, I guess, like just the previous few years, and so I think it puts him at 12.
Okay, fair enough. 11th, I have Alex Albon. I think that he is really making the most out of that car. It's hard to say when his teammate is doing absolutely nothing, but Albon, even when he's not picking up points, he's had 4 races where he's finished 11th or 12th. So even when he's not picking up points, he's on the edge of the points. This Williams car, it's more well-rounded than in years past, but that also means that it's not quite as good on the tracks where lower downforce is beneficial, as it was in years past. So the point opportunities haven't always been there for him. I think that he's doing the most of what he can. I mean, he's absolutely destroying Logan Sargent, and based on what he's done in previous years, like, this isn't a statistic at all, but just have to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt that he is doing the most that he possibly can.
Yeah, I just can't rank him that high when he's meeting expectation of destroying his teammate. That was the expectation.
It is the expectation, but it's also not fair to fault him for having a teammate who's not doing it.
Yeah, and I find him one of the harder drivers to rank.
That's definitely fair.
And here's another harder driver for rank for me. There's a bunch of guys in this tier, and I put him at the higher part of the tier. I don't know why, but he is my favorite. But yeah, Pierre Gasly. He's beating his teammate in points, which yes, qualifying does count for something. Yes, the racing beyond 11th does count for something. But at the end of the day, points are what gets money. Do I agree with everything? Do I like the point system? No. But points are what matters to things and stuff. So that's why I have him higher than his teammate.
Well said.
If you FIA, if you wanna fix your point system, I might fix my rankings. But a one size fits all point system for this, for Formula One, WEC, and other series, no good. Go ahead, Royce. You may talk now.
At the 11, I was just gonna say Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, he's had a fairly good year, but I mean, this is where the rankings start to get buff because it's all, I guess, very similar. But I just put him ahead of Ricardo because he's having a better year than Ricardo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have Fernando Alonso, 10th. He's doing a good job against his teammate Lance Stroll, as I previously said. But I guess ever since Canada, starting in Spain, but like really starting in Austria, it's been the first time that Fernando Alonso has actually looked old behind the wheel. His first 5 races, 6 races even, he did a very good job, very nice job. But since then, it's been a bit of a downhill turn. And then, like I said, things really went downhill in Austria, just making more mistakes than we usually see. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on him for those mistakes, but this is the first time we've seen things like that from Fernando. And he is still beating Lance by a large margin, but it's not something like crazy. So I kind of have trouble putting him any higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I put Yuki at the 10 spot, beating his teammate, but not really beating Lance Stroll, which is the next goal up the road. If he was beating Lance Stroll, I'd be putting him a few places higher, but I just can't put him.
I mean, I just think that Austin car is so much better than
Yeah.
the RB that doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. But okay.
At the 10, for me, I have Lance Stroll. I don't think he's had too terrible of a year. I mean, I think he's still just getting the job done. He's getting what he has to get done. I mean, obviously, I also think really with Stroll, there's kind of a stigma. Like, we kind of have to say he sucks because he really shouldn't have that seat. But I mean, with that seat, he's done a decent job.
I think he's definitely turned it around in recent weeks, but yeah, I think 10th is still a little high for him. I mean, he's still getting, like I said, it's nothing crazy, but he's still getting beat pretty handedly by his teammate Fernando Alonso. For 9th place on my ranking, I have Yuki Tsunoda. I think he's doing a very nice job in that RB this year. He's been in the points, I think, more often than he's not been. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm not going to do math here, but
About
he has
50.
he has a couple of 7 place finishes. I mean, those have been in at least one of those was in a race where there were a couple of DNFs, but still he's finished at a very respectable spot in the points, like best of the rest position a few times. And that's really the most you can ever expect from someone driving the car that he's in. He's beat Daniel Ricciardo pretty handedly. I feel like so. Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda 9th. I think he deserves the Red Bull seat. He's not gonna get it, but oh well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Fernando Alonso here, just because can't put him in my top 8, and I feel like there's a clear cut top 8, and Fernando Alonso's on. There's also top 8 in the point standings. Fernando's the best. The rest, Fernando's the best. The rest here, the rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, I have Alonso there too. I think, just another solid year. Just putting his time in. He's just there.
Mm-hmm.
We all have the same top 8 here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe we do. This guy that I have 8th, I almost feel bad for putting him 8th because it feels like a little bit that which I've really tried hard not to do in this ranking, but it feels like I'm almost discrediting him for not being in one of the top seats when he very well could be ranked much higher than this, but I just can't bring myself to rank him higher for some reason. Even though he maybe should. I'm talking about Nico Hulkenberg, who has had such an amazing year. Definitely making the most out of his car. He has a couple of 6th place finishes, been in the points plenty, 22 points on the year in a Haas that is not very great. Yeah, I look forward to see where you guys have him placed because I could honestly see him being ranked as high as like 3rd.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell you where he is. This guy, I think he's the B, unrightfully the B driver on his team, and gets treated like one, especially seeing where he'll be next year. I'm talking about the second best driver on the grid in terms of skill, in my opinion, Carlos Sainz.
For me at 8, with his recent performances, I feel kind of bad doing this, but he's another one of these drivers whose driver partner has beat him in every subject, and that'll be Lewis Hamilton. Has a race win this year, but I think everybody else that I still have on the table has just done better in their situations.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah, 7th, I have who Andrew had 8th. I have Carlos Sainz. I'll still disagree about him being the second best driver on the grid in terms of skill, but we don't need to get into that argument again. We've discussed that plenty of times. Carlos, he has a win on the year. And then to go alongside that, 4 third place finishes. It's been a good year for him, but nothing super great. I don't think it's been as good of a year this year as last year. I feel that Leclerc definitely deserves to be higher than him, and Leclerc has had plenty of races ruined by horrible strategy. So the fact that he is still so far ahead of he's not like crazy far ahead of Carlos in terms of points, but the fact that he's where he is when having at least 3 races ruined, I think it's pretty impressive that Charles has had such a good year. Unfortunately, that reflects negatively on Carlos, so Carlos 7th.
I will mention, but I know how to navigate the web. Carlos did have his race where he didn't race.
That's true.
and then he had whatever happened in Canada that all kind of offset. So yeah, just kind of you take the bad of Leclerc, bad of Sainz to kind of cancel out. For 7th for me, I'm gonna have the guy who had a good drive last race, but didn't have the result to show for it. George Russell,
Okay.
not beating Hamilton in points, but still a good year. Still showing why he deserves the Mercedes seat.
Yeah, for me as well at 7, I have Russell. I honestly was thinking of putting him above the Ferrari drivers until I saw an F1 post today that showed that he's 8th in average finishing position, which I feel like kind of offsets every um a lot of the bright spots I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's been solid.
Yeah. For 6th place, I have Lewis. Yeah, I don't really know how to really describe him because he was pretty nowhere for a lot of the year. And then in Canada, he kind of woke up a little bit with a 4th place. Spain, a 3rd place. Austria, another 4th place. And then he goes win, 3rd win. George, I think, had the better drive in Spa, and he got his win taken away for reasons that we already mentioned. But Lewis has really woken up in the recent part of the year, but he had such a stretch of doing absolutely nothing that was kind of concerning. And despite being ahead of Russell in points, I feel that Russell has been more well-rounded this year, and he's also had some things that I feel like you can kind of ignore. What happened in Australia, like that, the retirement at Silverstone, that's really unfortunate for him. I mean, Lewis did have a retirement in Australia as well, so it's not like Lewis has not had issues this year and whatnot, but also getting disqualified in Belgium, like these are a large amount of points that don't show quite how close those two are. And I mean, as you can see, I think that Russell is actually ahead of Lewis. So what number is this? 6th? I have Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, in this 6th position, I have Lance Stroll. He's just a guy. I mentioned him earlier. This guy's having just a year. I don't know how else to put it. Charles Leclerc. Sure, he won Monaco, broke his curse. But other than that, he hasn't really done much.
At 6 for me, I have Sainz. I mean, just another consistent, respectable year, but nothing too special about it.
Mm-hmm. 5th, I have George Russell. Kind of already discussed him when talking about Hamilton, but yeah, I think he's been a little bit better than Lewis. So yeah.
5, I have Lewis Hamilton. Has more points. I don't know what you want to do with wins. Technically more wins, but doesn't feel that way.
Depends how you look at it.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton 5, more points. More better average finish. Solid driver.
5 for me is Charles Leclerc. I mean, one of the reasons I kind of put him up higher than Sainz, Russell, Hamilton was, I mean, another good year, but on top of the good year, he's added in finally getting over that Monaco curse. And so, I mean, I think that gives him a couple extra points.
Yeah, I'm starting to personally wish that I put Nico Hulkenberg higher, but I'm not gonna say, oh, I switched things. But yeah. I thought you guys would have mentioned him by now. 4th, I have Oscar Piastri. That might come as a shock for some of you guys. he's had a very solid year, like especially winning in Hungary, 3 second place finishes, the second place in Spa, if you want to call it a third place, whatever, still on the podium. But he, for most of the year, has been, he was getting solid points, but for most of the year, he was still decently behind Lando. In Miami, like you could say, in Miami, he definitely should have scored points. His race got ruined there, so it could have been even closer, but yeah, he had been behind Lando for most of the year, and then I think just recently it's been like, okay, yeah, he's performing on just as good, if not higher of a level than Lando, but I think that's really only been the last couple of races. And even in Hungary, Lando was pulling away from Oscar after all the drama there. So it's not that Oscar's been bad at all. I just think that the gap to him and Lando is bigger throughout the first half than a lot of people want to act like it's been. He still has issues with his tire saving, that if he could fix those, I could maybe put him third, but yeah, I can't do it here.
Yeah, Ethan, you'll have some good news here. I'm putting at the 4th position Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
The run, he's having a great year. So, yeah. But yeah, it's still Haas, still can't put it above the 2 McLarens and Max.
Mm-hmm.
Shows why he's going to get possibly an upgraded seat next year in the Kick Sauber Audi. I like to call Kick Saudi.
Yeah, Saudi, as you've been calling it.
I'm adding the Kick Saudi because that's funnier.
Okay.
But Kick Saudi, hopefully that might be an upgrade for him. Who might be a downgrade? Who knows? But he's showing why he was a Renault driver for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
Ethan, yeah, it's your lucky day at number 4. I also have Nico Hulkenberg. What I would say about Hulkenberg is, well, he's dominated Magnussen in races, 11-2 head-to-head against Magnussen. And going into this year, a lot of people were saying this Haas is an absolute tractor. And look what he's made out of it. He's made 22 points out of it. He's 10th in average finishing position. He's done a pretty good job with this car, and I think gives him a very respectable 4th.
Yeah. For third for me, I have Charles Leclerc. He is also third in the championship, but I feel like he's had a very, very solid year. Like, he has been on the podium so much. He won in Monaco, great race weekend there. And I think the weekends where he's performed bad, I think it's been out of his control. He was slow in Canada, but so was Carlos that weekend. That was just a weird weekend for Ferrari, and Ferrari also just ruined any chance of points that he possibly had by putting him on one of the worst strategies I've ever seen, making one of the worst decisions I've ever seen, putting him on the wrong tire for the condition. Like, that's just, how do you do that? Like, look at the Weather Channel. And then again, like, I think that his other 2 bad races are kind of I don't exactly remember what happened to him in Austria, unfortunately, but yeah, he had a horrible strategy at Silverstone. Team ruined his race there. And like I said, he's been on the podium so many times, and when he hasn't been on the podium, he's only finished 4th or 5th. His lowest, like, legit finish has been 5th this year. Like, he has been super duper solid. I think I honestly think that the gap between like all of these guys like is so tight that you can really find any argument to put them in any position. But I think that Charles has just been so strong, and I think that people are discrediting him for things that have been out of his control. Just the team ruining some of his races, giving him weird strategies and such.
Yeah.
Breaking news real quick. Morgan Tremmel has been posted on the 942 crew post.
Oh yeah. I sent it to
Legend.
our group chat. But yeah. Friend of the podcast, Morgan Tremmel, everyone's favorite Yuki Tsunoda enjoyer.
So this means me and Morgan have been on 942 crew posts. Y'all need to get your game up.
I technically was on one of them. I can see my hat and face.
Oh, Josh was featured twice.
Yeah. Anyway,
Kid loves OSU football.
back to business at hand. Third place for me. Given the choice between the two of them today, who's the better driver? I'd take this guy over the other one. But over the season, over the spread of the 15 or so races, I would take the other one over this guy. So I'm taking Oscar Piastri, pastry man himself.
If you were starting an F1 team today, you would take Piastri over Lando.
Yes.
I think that's crazy.
I think Piastri's going to be the McLaren Formula One world champion, assuming that will happen in the next 10 years or so.
Until he gets his tire management under control, I can't say that. But carry on.
Royce, who do you have at number 3?
My number 3, I mean, I'm just honestly debating it right now. It's really a coin toss, but I'm going to go with where it was originally put, Oscar Piastri. I mean, my rankings are versus expectations. And in the second year, unreal driving from Piastri. I mean, it's only a second year, and he's performed very well. Multiple podium finishes. Got his first race win, although it was kind of in a crappy way. But yeah, he's had a great year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I still have Piastri 4th. I still think he's an amazing driver. And like you said, he's doing all this in his second year, but I just can't put him quite as high as you guys have. In second, though, I have his teammate, Lando Norris. I honestly feel like if Lando, I genuinely feel this way. If Lando was slower, people would think he's better than he is right now. It's because of the fact that he has fought Max for race wins on multiple occasions and come up short that people are discrediting him. Like if he was genuinely slower, just like consistently 10 seconds behind Max and no one else was in between and everyone else was behind Lando, I feel like people would genuinely rate Lando higher than they do now, which is kind of backwards, but I kind of think it's true because people are discrediting him for not being able to beat Max Verstappen, who is like the best driver in the world right now, and it's not even close. Should he have more wins than he does? Yes, absolutely. But that's also on McLaren being weird, not just Lando struggling, but Lando definitely has things to work on. Like his starts have been absolutely horrific. You can't have starts like that because you're ruining your race before it even gets underway. But he has still been super amazing. He has the win in Miami, of course, a plethora of second places, a couple of thirds. He has been so on top of his game, and there have been crazy circumstances in these last like 7 or whatever F1 races, but like the only driver to come close to Max when Max has been on is Lando. Lando should have won in Britain. Max wasn't strong that weekend, but I feel that was more on the team than Lando. I don't know. Either way, like I don't want to get too caught up on that race. Like he's been amazing. So many second places. Like I said, the only guy that has really challenged Max at all this year.
Yeah. Lando is I would say, clear-cut number 2. He's had the second best season. There's just no other words I can say that. Where he's been. Got to clean up the starts at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Royce,
Yeah,
I
number
think
2, I have Lando as well. I mean, obviously, really good year. He's done a good job, but I mean, just not quite first. But it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this year goes. It definitely looks like McLaren's gaining and Red Bull's slowing down. And, if you never know what might happen, but if things go crazy, we could be looking at a championship race going into the final couple weekends.
I wouldn't bet on it, but I would love to see it. The guy I have in first place, the guy that we all have in first place, undoubtedly the best driver in the world right now. Just insane what he's doing. Even in races where he's like quote unquote struggled, like he's had good races. He salvaged starting outside of the top 10 in Belgium. Hungary was a bad race for him, but like in like Max Verstappen's worst race in recent memory, he finished 5th, right? Like that's kind of crazy. Austria, he would have finished 1st or 2nd if him and Lando didn't make contact. Monaco, yes, was another bad performance, finishing 6th. But like besides that, literally 3 bad races, and they're still very good points finishing positions. It's just insane what Max Verstappen has done. Like the dominance he's had, like the winning by so much, like it's just crazy. Like I don't need to explain it. It's Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he was our driver of the year last year on the podcast, and I'm to have him number 1 again he'll be number 1 again in terms of Formula 1. I don't know if he'll get driver of the year this year. We'll see.
I don't think there's anyone as we'll see.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much all been covered. Verstappen number 1. Hold on. Let's break it down real quick. Him versus Perez in race qualifying, 14-0 Verstappen. In sprint qualifying, 3-0 Verstappen. In races, 13-1 Verstappen. And that's because he DNF'd in Australia.
Yeah.
And then in sprint races, 3-0 Verstappen. He's been absolutely dominant. It will be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes, because it kind of looks like Red Bull is a little bit falling apart inside, and I do have a little bit of an insider source into that situation, and the future is not looking as bright as it has been in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the season happens, but he's been dominant with what he's been given.
I don't think I would see a fight for the drivers' championship. Constructors, for me though,
Constructors is very much up in the air. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Royce, plug yourself. Where can the people of the world find you? What good are you doing in the world?
What good are you doing?
At RDC Journalism on Instagram. what good I'm doing in the world, I'm not really sure. But, you know, we're just vibing out here.
Yeah. Watch out, Hofstra. Here he comes.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming
Thank
on.
you for
This was
coming on.
another long episode. So thank you for bearing with us until we got to the ranking segment.
Hey, it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. All right. Y'all know where to find us, and we'll see you next time.
To me, it looked like he actually lost the wheel.
The wheel for Ross Chastain is still and perfect.
Wheel on the track.
Did you leave the wheel loose?
You picked a fine time to leave me loose, wheel.